What's up, guys? With the Diablo 4 Server Slam beta right around the corner, they've announced rewards for getting to level 20 and defeating the world boss ASHAVA. Now, I know a lot of people struggled with the Druid in the last beta, but I personally really enjoyed it, and I thought I could give some tips on how to level up more efficiently and what build I'll be using against ASHAVA. So let's get into it. So during the Server Slam event, they're giving out the Beta Wolfpack reward for reaching level 20. If you did not previously already receive this, you can still get this. They also added the Cry of ASHAVA mount trophy for beating ASHAVA this time. Now, we can only get to level 20, which is 5 levels lower than before, and legendaries will be dropping at a much more reduced rate than they were. So it's going to be a lot tougher to beat ASHAVA and get to level 20, but I'm hoping some of these tips will be able to help you guys out. Now, before we take a look at the build I have, there are two things that I will mention. One being you can actually fight ASHAVA on World Tier 1, which is much easier than World Tier 2. There is no difference whether you defeat them on 1 or 2. As long as you beat ASHAVA, you get the reward. So, you know, if you're looking to just get the reward, first things first, get it down to World Tier 1. The other thing I will mention is ASHAVA actually does some physical damage, but the big thing is poison damage. So if you do nothing but get poison resistance on any piece of gear you can, amulets come with like all resistance baseline, rings can get poison resistance on their implicits, and then you can also get poison resistance on affixes. That would be the single biggest thing that'll help you live against ASHAVA. All right, so let's take a look at the build I have here. Now, I am using this skill calculator because it is the most up-to-date with the most recent data mined information. So we'll go through it here. You can use Wind Shear or Storm Strike. A lot of people like Storm Strike. This build is meant for just anyone to be able to pick it up, whether you've played Druid or not. So the idea behind it is it's going to be mostly like a ranged build where you don't really have to do too much. You're pretty safe. You know, you can stay back. So if you feel a little more comfortable, feel free to get Storm Strike. It does give you damage reduction, but getting into melee range against ASHAVA can be a little tricky. I will say though, the easiest way to dodge ASHAVA's attacks is to be closer to them. So, you know, if you feel confident, go Storm Strike, getting close, you know, dodge around and stuff like that. That being said, Wind Shear has quite a long range. And on top of that, we don't have too many points to work with, but I did put a point into Fierce Wind Shear, and you can stack this up 4 times for a total of 20% movement speed, which will help you move out of the telegraphs faster and stuff like that. So I kind of like this. It just felt nice and comfy. Like I said, Wind Shear or Storm Strike, either are fine. But you'll just take Wind Shear and then Enhance Wind Shear first before you move on down here. Now, you can use any of these abilities. Personally, I think Landslide is probably the easiest to use for someone who's not sure what they're doing. It did take quite a nerf in terms of the damage from the patch, but again, it is a ranged ability, super easy to hit on a single target. Really good skill ups behind it. There is if you are feeling a little more tricky with this, you can actually stack up these terra motes before you go to ASHAVA. We'll get to it a little later, but basically whenever you immobilize an enemy, you gain a terra mote, making it so that your next Landslide will crit and do extra crit damage. So if you want to get a little sneaky with it, you can stack these up at a time. There's no time limit on them unless they've changed that since the last beta. But Landslide will probably be your best bet still, even though it did take a very heavy nerf. But like I said, Lightning Storm got a buff. You're welcome to use Lightning Storm. This one requires you to understand a little bit of the mechanics. You would take Lightning Storm, Enhanced Lightning Storm, and then Raging Lightning Storm, and you need to be casting it at least once every 4 seconds, which is what this is, to preserve the buff and get all the way up to 6 stacks. I'll probably try this because I want to try out the new Lightning Storm since it did get buffed. I think it'll be pretty solid because ASHAVA has a huge hitbox. I think there's a chance all 6 might hit. But yeah, I'll let you guys know how that goes. But I'd say Landslide's your safest bet. I will get to the aspects later. There are some aspects that make things better. So for example, like Tornado, if we look over here, there's an aspect called Storm Chaser, where if you get this, if you get really lucky, you get this during beta, you can use Tornado. If you get aspect of the Aftershock, This is really good for landslide. Yeah, we'll go over these in a little bit. Shockwave lets you use pulverize. There's some things for shred like that, but yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with. I'll say landslide's the easiest thing. Again, range with like wind shear, you just sit back, hang out, not a big deal. But yeah, next we have Earthen Bulwark. Now this is kind of your if ASHAVA does hit you, it's going to put a giant dot on you. So you actually have a little bit of time to react with this. You'll notice you're taking a lot of damage. I did put a point in here to be unstoppable as well. It's not super needed. There's not too many other places to put the points now. I like this personally. This is also, again, a leveling build. You can easily, this is what I'll be leveling with. So this is super nice. The cool thing about unstoppable is when you get stunned or knocked down or whatever it is, you can actually press the button while you're CC'd. It's not something you have to press before you get CC'd to prevent CC. It actually is also a crowd control like break. It'll remove crowd control from you. So I personally found this really nice. There were some the goatmen that would like slam their axe down and stun you. You can just hit this and you're out of it instantly. So I just found this really comfortable to play with. It felt really nice. But yeah, Earthen Bulwark, very solid, just 1 point in there. Again, we don't have too many points to work with. It does say level 22. I should have mentioned that. You get 2 extra points if you go look for and do all the renowned stuff. You don't have to do that. I just put the extra points in case you do end up doing it, but you don't need the 2 extra points, not a big deal. Now, the next thing we're going to get to is actually what they changed, and you'll see they heavily buffed the active abilities on all the companions for the Druid. So because we don't have that many skill points, and we might not even have any legendaries, to be honest, we don't know how low the drop rate is. This is super supplemental while also being just really solid when put together. So you're going to be casting Wind Shear and Landslide, but these are really, really good cooldown. They don't cost spirit, which is one of the biggest issues with Druid. The wolves now, when they attack, it's like wolves do triple the damage. I think poison creepers like triple the damage. Ravens are like double the damage. So it's really, really good. And then here we have companion skills deal 30% bonus damage. So again, this build is really for someone that doesn't want to have to, think too much. They're not really sure what they're doing. You can just put all this on. And if you just sit back, cast Wind Shear and Landslide, these pets are just going to do damage for you without you, even if you don't click the buttons. You're going to want to click the buttons. If you do want to do a little combo with it, you can put up the poison with poison creeper. Oh, this was called vine creeper, so they changed the name on that. You can put up the poison by clicking this. It'll also be applying the poison. And then wolves, if you attack with them, they'll deal 20% increased damage to immobilized, stunned, slowed, or poisoned enemies. So this does 90% damage over 2 seconds. So I assume that means each second is 45% damage for this node right here. That adds 3 seconds. So that's what, 135% more damage, 225% poison damage over 5 seconds on a click is really, really nice. Some other things you can do while leveling specifically, I wouldn't do this for ASHAVA. You could take some points out of these two and you could put it down here in the Ravens so that basically the combo would be you root everything, with the poison, and then you can use the Ravens. They'll hit. You'll get 5% crit chance against the enemy. They'll become vulnerable, and then you can send the wolves out. And I can't imagine things will live between. You might not even need, more than one of the buttons. So that's a bit overkill. And for ASHAVA, as far as I'm aware, as long as anyone applies vulnerability, vulnerable that is, like it applies for everyone. So if you're fighting ASHAVA, the chances that someone is applying vulnerable is quite high. Between, because there can be up to 12 people in your instance at once. But yeah, so that's a pretty straightforward build. There's tons of little things you can do. If you aren't too worried about damage, like if you go down to World Tier 1, you just want to survive, you want to stay alive, you can easily drop these pets over here. You can drop the Raven. You can even drop the pet damage if you want. You can drop these back here, and you can grab Cyclone Armor. This is a great, again, another nerf. It got cut in half, unfortunately, but it is non-physical damage reduction, which will work for the poison damage reduction. You can put 2 points in here as well off the back end. So when you do get hit, you take even less damage. You can put points over here, increase your non-physical resistances. So if you get lots of poison resistance on your gear, you know, feel free to grab some of this. You can take Vigilance as well. I don't think it's quite as valuable with how few points we have, but yeah. So I was mentioning the aspects. So I highlighted a couple of the aspects that are, I don't know if I'll call it build defining, but specifically for the server slam. If you happen to get these ones, I would say these are probably like the bigger ones where if you just happen to get one, it would kind of assist your build or define your build a little bit. So for example, the shockwave aspect, a lot of people really like this one. It makes it so your pulverize hits twice, basically. It adds a ranged component to it, and it'll do 130% of the normal damage. Now, one thing we didn't talk about is whether or not to use a two-hander or a one-hander and an offhand. Using something like this, you put it on a two-hander, suddenly the shockwave is doing 260% damage because two-handers double offensive aspects, right? If you do get this by chance, you know, you want to look to take your points out of landslide, right? And then put them over here and pulverize. You want to take enhanced pulverize. Oops, sorry. And then you need to, let's see. You could take either. I would say probably just take primal pulverize. I would assume this works on ASHAVA. It would be pretty solid. But yeah, that's where I would go if you get, you know, shockwave, things like that. So we talked about aftershock. If you have landslide already, this just doubles your damage. Well, slightly more than doubles your damage. Extremely, extremely good with landslide. There's a couple other interesting ones. Like I said, tornado, if you get the storm chasers aspect, will seek it. This did get nerfed as well, but it's not a problem for ASHAVA specifically, single target. Switch over to tornado. If you do get that, you're going to put your points in tornado, get an extra chance to spawn an extra tornado, and then you can take the chance to apply vulnerable. So then you'll be, you know, freely applying vulnerable. That's pretty solid. These two over here, we have aspect of the alpha. Your wolf companions are now werewolf companions. Werewolf companions deal up to 100% additional damage and can spread rabies. I mean, this is just, you just slap it on the build already. We have the wolves, really, really solid. You can, another thing too, if there is a pet you specifically like, feel free to drop the other pets and just like put more points in. You see the damage really goes up as well. You don't need all three pets. I liked it. I thought it felt pretty good. It's all just kind of passive damage too. So there's just, if you're dodging abilities and stuff, you know, they're just going to constantly be doing damage, right? Other than that, we have aspect of the stampede, gain one additional companion. You know, if you get a bunch of companions, you can add +1 on all that. The other two I would say are a little tougher to play. There's overcharged aspect and Runeworker's conduit. Now, both of these would be if you're playing Lightning Storm. They would be pretty good for that. It is a little tougher to play that, so I'd be a little careful. And then the final one that actually Trample got extremely buffed is Trampled Earth. Basically, you would take a couple points out up here, you know, of your pets or something, and you'd come down here, you'd take Trample, you take Enhanced Trample, and whenever you use Trampled Earth, it'll summon a bunch of landslide pillars out from the side of you. And based on ASHAVA's hitbox, I think a lot of them would hit. And then if you also got Aftershock on top of it, that would be crazy. But again, this is just the beta. Not a lot of points, not a lot to work with. So it's meant to be a very, very simple build. Anyone can pick it up and play. I really, really enjoyed Druid. I was sad to see, you know, a lot of people weren't liking it or thought it wasn't doing a lot of damage. I think it'll be, I don't want to put myself out there too far. I think it will be the best class, if not easily top 2 classes at the end game. So if you really like Druid, stick with it. I think there's a ton of different builds you can play with it that are really, really solid. I'm going to be making a ton of Druid content. I'm going to be maining Druid and focusing just on that, playing all the different builds. I'll be making tons more videos. Make sure you check back on those. But otherwise, until next time, I'll see you guys later.